Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services, Cottonwood Parks and Recreation, and Gettles High Desert Mechanical. I'm your host, Philip Catafamo. We have got a great show in store for you this week. Later in the program, we'll be joined by Bradshaw Mountain High School football coach Bob Young to break down his strategy of scheduling out-of-region opponents, talk about the differences between running backs Elijah Acuna and Gabriel Ricketts and how they both fit in the offense. We'll then be joined by Northland Prep Academy cross-country coach Carl Perry. He'll discuss the running culture up in the Flagstaff area, praise the new group of freshmen the program welcomed in this year, and look forward at the rest of the schedule. But on the other side of this break, we'll be joined by Northland Prep Academy girls soccer coaches Michael Blair and Keith Hovis to talk about their tough out-of-region opponents, the development of their junior goalie, and preview the matchup next week against Chino Valley High School. All of that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Starting in the late 1920s, Grandpa Gettle and his brothers laid the groundwork for what would become a family legacy. Almost 100 years and 100 patents later, Gettle's High Desert Mechanical continues to raise the bar of quality heating, cooling, and plumbing products and services in the Verde Valley.
Call Gettle's High Desert Mechanical Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing at 567-2200 or online at GettlesHDM.com, providing solutions for your comfort. Don't settle. Get Gettles.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Cottonwood Parks and Recreation and Gettles High Desert Mechanical. I am joined now by a familiar face of the program and a new face of the program. They are the two coaches of the Northland Prep Academy girls soccer program, Michael Blair and Coach Keith Hovis. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Let's start off, of course, the Spartans continuing their momentum from last season. Your four-time 2A state title champions, looking to capture number 5 in a row, 5-1 on the season so far up until recording this interview. Had a huge game. Coach Blair, you and I talked about the matchup against Faith Lutheran Junior Senior High School in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was a team that you were excited to see on the schedule. The team got an opportunity to play them. Let's talk a little bit about that tough opponent, and let's start there, guys. How'd you guys fare against Faith Lutheran? Anyone can start.
Yeah. So, we've been trying to get this together for 3 years. Again, last year we had a really strong team we wanted to play against. And so we got the opportunity to play this year. We're really young, right? I think that showed, but what we're really proud of is they matured through it. They didn't get down. It was actually 3-0 at half. It could have been 1-0, them 0-1 at half, but a couple mistakes that we're correcting, which is good because we learned from them for our season. Then in the second half, once we knew, right, it was pretty much out of reach. We decided we just wanted to play everybody and make sure they got an opportunity to play in that, in that big game. They're ranked number 8 this week. So in the nation, they're legit. I mean, they are definitely legit. I think he said they have 61 players and 4 like D2 and everybody else is committed to other schools. So their keeper is, she's committed to USC.
Wow.
Things like that. So their facilities were amazing. I mean, it looked like a college campus. So it was a great experience just to see the kids play that. And now they know, we competed with the top team. So when we're back here, we know how to even get to the level that we haven't been at, right? Even with 4 state championships. So they're the biggest school in Nevada and, win the state championship there. So that's what we just wanted to see what that looked like.
Coach Hovis, do you have anything to add during that game against Faith Lutheran?
Yeah, I mean, I think from all season we've been kind of inconsistent offensively, and to see, I mean, the biggest part going forward with this, and also defensively, obviously they scored a lot of goals against us when we put different players in, is that it really helped fine tune us, I think, to what our shape's going to be going forward, and you know, when you play a team that smells blood like they did, I mean, they're gonna hammer it in. And so we kind of used it mainly as a teaching tool. I mean, you want it to be fun. By then it wasn't fun, but we got to play one of the nationally ranked teams, and you want everybody to get a chance. And I just think defense, from a defensive standpoint, we learned a lot in the second half of that game, where people can play, what kind of pressure they're going to sustain from really good teams. And like Coach Blair said, I mean, we're very young in a lot of positions. And so one thing we've always done at NPA is we don't just play for this year. I mean, we're playing for the future. And so we're going to put kids into hard situations so they can figure it out.
Well, as you both know, and everybody knows, if you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And you guys scheduling in a game like this, like you mentioned, a nationally ranked team, they've got players who are going to play on Division I, Division II soccer programs. Does this set the precedent for you guys to possibly add in more of these very tough out of region opponents to gear up and get your players ready for a tough region matchup, a tough region, along with who they might face throughout the state playoffs? Could we see more teams like Faith Lutheran pop up on the schedule going forward?
I think it depends. Yeah, I think it depends. We've always tried. I think 4 years ago, we played in a tournament in Mesquite and played different Las Vegas teams. Obviously, Faith Lutheran wasn't a part of that tournament, but we've also tried to play tournaments in St. George, Utah that had 2 or 3 state champions. So they would have like a 2A, 3A, and a 4A state championship go to this tournament. It's just with COVID and everything else, it's been really hard to play even in state, but out of state's been very hard to schedule that.
Coach Blair, do you have anything to add to that?
No, we're just always looking for the toughest opponents, period, right? And we know with being in the fall here and most of Arizona being the winter, we've talked about that. We have to go to other states, and it's okay. This last week, we've gone from 3.5 hours, one way, so 7-hour round trip to Nevada, and then last night we just got back from Springerville, which is 3.5 hours the other way. So we're pretty worn out. So we're going to rest the rest of this week, and kind of our road trips have been pretty lengthy. So part of people don't realize what it takes to win. It's not as easy as it looks when you got kids that are maybe getting sick or injuries or long road trips, and they got to work with their studies. So our kids do a great job of balancing all that out and being responsible, and it shows in the end result.
Taking a look at the roster here last year, the program graduates 9 seniors this year. You carry 7 on the roster. Of course, it doesn't mean that the team is inexperienced. You guys mentioned relatively younger roster this year. I kind of looked at it, saw a lot of sophomores, a lot of returning juniors as well, a couple freshmen sprinkled in there too. One of which a big returner, Molly Donahoe, who is leading the team in goals right now with 15. Guys, how important have these returners been this year? And either Coach Blair or Coach Hovis, you can take it away.
I mean, I think it's huge. I mean, and that's kind of what we use a lot of these games for in the tournaments. We try to, the one thing that we say NPA is, yeah, we have a JV team now. We didn't ever probably 2 or 3 years ago. But if you're a freshman, you're a player. And so we've always really pushed that our freshmen can impact on the varsity level. And, Molly did that last year. And she probably got the most playing time as a freshman to be able to play with that graduating senior class. And I think she's carried it over. She's refined her skill, and she's finishing at a higher rate than maybe we even expected, but she's done amazing. And I think that goes with our 4, the defensive center mid, center defender, Joss. She stepped in, she played a little 4 last year, and she stepped in. And they're still developing and learning the position, but she's come a long way mentally as far as playing that position and kind of being the leader of the defense.
Coach Blair, same question.
Our youth is always a big thing at NPA because we're such a small school. So we definitely, we use them. So what's neat this year is there's some freshmen that are starting to make, I think they have to work through the kinks a little bit early on, right? But I think they're getting through that, and they're realizing I'm good enough, right? I'm good enough to play with these bigger girls, and they're starting to have an impact. That's what's fun now. So we're starting to come together right in the middle of the season like we planned to, and peak at the end of the season. So we're excited for that.
Taking a look at the rest of the roster here, of course, returning goalie Millie Gindorf, who has already matched her save total from last year with 87. She's got 87 goals this season so far. There's still a lot of games left to go. How important have her contributions been on the field so far this season? Of course, another returner that you guys see, like I mentioned, matching her saves total from last year, already there this year with 87 and going forward on the season. So Coach Blair, we'll start with you. What has Millie meant to the team so far?
I think for Millie, it's funny because all our keepers, even Peyton last year before, junior year is the maturation year, right? It's the year that they start to mature and really refine. We give them very specific things that they need to improve on, and she's improving on those, and it's a big deal because it saves those, your team's playing great, and then you have one silly little blunder, right? And then, and I think that was big playing up in Vegas to be able to get a lot of shots, and she had some amazing saves. So I think that goes kind of a feather in her cap, right? Now when she goes against these other teams, she's really making better decisions and maturing, and that's what we're looking for, right? And then as a senior, then they're just amazing with all that. But I think it's the maturing that has to happen that we're starting to see now as a junior, and so she's going to lead the younger goalkeepers in that, and it's refreshing because it's what we need to get through the rest of the season.
Coach Hovis, I mean, same question to you, of course. Where do you see Millie kind of going in her development towards her senior year, going into her senior year next year? I mean, what are you guys expecting from her next year? She's already shown some flashes this year of how good she can be.
I think she's doing great. I think we're like the details matter kind of coaches. The little things are the most important thing. And I think kind of like what Coach Blair was talking about, just the maturity of knowing how to distribute the ball out of the back. She makes amazing saves. And then every now and then she kind of loses focus and misses something silly. But so I mean, it's just a matter of the focus and knowing where to play the ball out of the back. And so she already has, I think she has 2 assists this year, which is crazy for your goalkeeper. But so she's doing the right things a lot of times. And having that many saves, that's not a good thing. That shows you that our defense and everything else, we've been coming up to a point of where we're trying to refine where we in the past, we limit shots, and that's where we're all, but she's made amazing saves but we need to limit the shots for sure on the defensive end.
Coach Blair, going forward, how does this team do just what Coach Hovis mentioned? I mean, what are you guys doing in practice to sort of limit those opportunities for the opposing team to get down on your side of the field?
The important thing, we watch video, so we get video of our games, and it's so important for the girls because they see it and they're smart enough that typically when they see it, they can correct themselves, right? So they can do some self-coaching, and that's the big thing. There's a few things we need to tweak defensively, and we're working on that. I think they started that yesterday in the Round Valley game and did a good job. And then more so even on our attack, we've made some adjustments with players and things. And that's the fun part about high school, right? You're kind of building and changing things and rearranging things. And then about this time of the season against a big game like we're coming up to next week, right, we go, okay, this is where we think we are. This is where the best players play. Let's go and see what happens. And we keep refining from there all the way to the state championship. And even last year in the semifinal, we were making small adjustments, right, to see if it would work. One of them didn't, so we quickly adjusted back. And, but it's having the players that are willing to and smart enough to make adjustments as you go in the game. Like we tell them, good players can make adjustments between the games, but great players can make it in the game. And that's what we're trying to really teach.
Again, we were speaking with Northland Prep Academy girls soccer coaches Michael Blair and Keith Hovis. The Spartans continuing their season so far, currently 5-1 on the year. As of this interview, they've got their matchup coming up October 12th against the Chino Valley Cougars, which we will, of course, preview, a big rivalry game between these two programs. Gentlemen, you mentioned the JV team. First year in a little while, you guys have had a JV team. How are the lower levels looking, and is there anybody that you guys are excited about coming up?
Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, Keith, you want to start? Sorry, a little hard with these three-way interviews.
No, it's fine. I think the thing about, like we talk about keepers, we have 2 keepers that are basketball players and haven't played soccer in a long time. And both of them, neither one of them has played keeper. And for them to be able to get the opportunities to play keeper, it is amazing to watch. We have a lot of young defenders that are learning, and then for some of the freshmen that maybe can impact a little bit on varsity, they get to play on a JV level and they get a lot of reps. They get the ball, they get a lot of shots and everything else. And No, I mean, our JV team really competes. Even when we were in Nevada, we lost 4-2 to them, and we had opportunities. They scored a late goal. We had opportunities to tie the game. So our JV team is very competitive, and it's I think the biggest part of being in a small school and not being able to have that is, a lot of kids kind of get left out because they're not going to get playing time when you play really tough games. But with the JV schedule, they get to play games. They get that time on the field and get to play against an opponent. And it's a huge, huge thing for development for them, confidence wise and everything else.
Coach, we'll start with Coach Blair, of course. Obviously looking at the roster, you guys are looking at a potential return of most of the players who don't graduate, of course. And then along now with the JV team, you've got a sort of, a little bit of a reserve of players who may see some time at the varsity level this year, may see more, of course, next year potentially, or maybe return to the JV team. Does this large group of returning players sort of change the way that you guys build the schedule, build the roster going forward, considering that not only are you welcoming back a big crop of players next season, but there's, of course, a pretty decent amount of newer players that are going to be looking at playing time as well. Coach Blair, if you want to start with that one.
Yeah, for our program, when we built it, we knew we needed 5 to 6 new players every year. If we get more than that, it's a bonus. So, we have a big crop. We had it last year, and we have a big crop in the sophomore class. We think next year we'll have a decent crop too. But, again, we play everyone. If you're, I don't care if you're a freshman, senior, if you're playing and doing the things that we've been talking about, right? Part of it is you have to go out there and do what we're talking about. If we're playing a certain formation and you go out there playing another one, you're probably going to lose some of that time, right? So, and that's the accountability we have as a team that, and again, they step up to that. So for us, it's, work hard and do the little things like Coach Hovis mentioned, and you'll get that time. And then again, just building for the future. We're always building for the future. So again, there's been some freshmen this year that are starting to have an impact, and they're going to surprise some people throughout the rest of the season.
A little bit of a different question here for you guys as we take just a step away from the team and just kind of talk about you two as coaches. Coach Blair, you've obviously been on the program a couple of times. You've gotten a chance to speak about your working relationship with Coach Hovis. But now, considering that we have Coach Hovis on the show, I'd like to turn that question on to him. And Coach Hovis, I'd love to ask you, it's been a very successful, I believe, 5 seasons so far going, I believe we're in number 6 of you two taking over this program, working on 5 in a row right now. So Coach Hovis, I'd love to just kind of ask you, how has it been working alongside Coach Blair? You both have had daughters come up through the program together, win national championships together. So Coach Hovis, how has it been just throughout the years working alongside Coach Blair? We can pretend that he's not in the Zoom call. So if you want to speak a little bit more generally, you can.
Well, yeah. I don't get to hear what he said about me, so
it was all good stuff, Coach. I promise.
No, I mean, I think this is our 7th year, and probably our 9th year coaching before we took over as co-head coaches. I mean, I think, and it's funny that you bring this up because last night our referee asked, "So you're the head coach?" And I said, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, I thought the other guy was the head coach." And I go, "Yeah." And it's kind of a weird thing, but I mean, especially with our situation with work and everything else. I mean, the logistics and all the administration and the time and the effort to build a program like this, you can't, you need to have a full-time job to do it. And so it works really well for both of us with our other jobs. I mean, yes, we spend our lunches talking about soccer, but we do that throughout the year anyway. And so it's a lot of fun. I think we have similar interests in soccer. We love the game of soccer, but maybe we don't like the 1-1 game. We would rather the game be 7-3. So we love offense. We love goals. I mean, to me, that's what soccer is. We also love possession soccer and kids being able to play in possession, even out of the back, even when we try to do that where the defense contributes to bringing the ball up and getting it up to the offense. And so we also have things where we're different and we're like, "Oh, I don't believe that. Why are we doing that?" And I think we've built a relationship where we can come there, we can vent, we can do all those things and work together and work through and then talk about, but what about kids? What are the kids do we have and what can they do? And so sometimes it takes us all year to figure that out. Sometimes it doesn't, it takes a couple of games, but it's a great relationship.
Coach Blair, just kind of briefly, how has Coach Hovis helped you as a coach throughout these past couple of years?
Yeah, like you said, we have similar interests, but come at different angles at times, which is what you need, right? You need that kind of to see, okay, now where do we land? So we'll have our discussions and then go, okay, now where do we go with this, right? And with the players we have and the team we have, and really, again, just trying to make the best environment for the girls to learn and to grow and to mature. And, how do we work soccer and to work that through soccer? So, we've had so many players that have gone up and graduated that still keep in contact with us. And crazy enough, we share the same birthday. So all the girls will text us on our birthdays, different years, but same day. So I think it makes it easier for the girls. So we'll get texts from former players and stuff like that. And so it's pretty neat, but we're definitely passionate about it and want it for the kids,
Again, we were speaking with Northland Prep Academy co-coaches for the girls soccer program, Michael Blair and Keith Hovis. The Spartans are looking at a matchup against a region opponent, against a big rival, against a team that they have faced in the state championship 3 out of the 4 times that they have won the state championship. It is a matchup that everyone likes to circle on the schedule. Of course, these two teams have already matched up earlier in the year. The Cougars able to beat the Spartans 1-0 in September. They got a chance to play in a non-season or out of season schedule or a tournament invitational. I'm not technically sure what the exact terminology is, but gentlemen, you get an opportunity here. This time it counts. It's the first region game, and of course it's against Chino Valley. So, Coach Hovis, I'll start with you. What are you guys expecting from Chino Valley this go around?
I think we expect them to be there. We always every year. We expect them to be the best team we play. Most of the time they are, and they're well coached, but they have 2 seniors on their team that are contributing a lot that we've known and we've even coached before, as well as a junior that's really good. And so we know kind of what they have, and we know them, they know us. And so we kind of know what we have to do. And like you said, we played them earlier this year and tried to do some different stuff. And for us, offensively, it didn't work, but defensively, we only gave up 1 goal, and it was a pretty fun game. It was fun to watch the high intensity, and that's the thing with our players is we want them just like the Faith Lutheran game. We know that when we're in those games, how are the kids going to respond? The X's and O's and all that stuff, the formations, we can figure out. We can get them in a better situation. But then they have to play the game and they have to do that. So we're excited. It'll be fun to play them at home. It's always fun when we get to play them more than once a year.
Coach Blair, excuse me, just real quick. You got just a couple seconds here. Same question. How are you feeling against the Cougars?
I think we've made some adjustments, right? We played them earlier. We played one way in the tournament. We've kind of watched what they're doing, watch what we're doing. And I think we're starting to put some things together. I think certain players are contributing. We know where to put them, where to use them on the field. So, it's going to be a good matchup to kind of head, we're using this to bearings for the playoffs, right? And learn from that. So we learn a lot from, how we're growing. And that's the cool thing about through the season, right? We just keep learning. And so it's another learning point, and we definitely want to win it. So we're going to do certain things, and it'll be fun to see how they respond and step up.
The Cougars take on the Spartans on October 12th, and these two gentlemen are always excited to take on their rivals over at Chino Valley High School. They are Northland Prep Academy coaches for the girls soccer program, Michael Blair and Coach Keith Hovis. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the show to talk about the program.
Thanks.
Thanks, Philip.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Bradshaw Mountain High School football coach Bob Young. Stay with us on the other side of this break.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Gettles High Desert Mechanical. I am joined now by a familiar face of the program, Bradshaw Mountain High School football coach Bob Young. Coach Young, welcome back onto the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
It is year 2 for Coach Young at Bradshaw Mountain High School. The Bears come into region play. Big victory against Mingus Union not too long ago on October 1st. Taking a look at some of the schedule out of region. Of course, you guys take on Yunker. You guys also have a pretty tough out of region schedule with Cactus, Estrella Foothills, Seton Catholic. Those teams, of course, either currently playoff teams or former playoff teams as well, depending on the season. So, Coach, I just kind of wanted to get an idea just sort of how you're feeling in your second year and also sort of your methodology when it comes to scheduling those out of region teams.
Well, the big thing, Philip, is that, a lot of times coaches don't have a whole lot of say in who we schedule. We when they come up with these schedules, we give a wish list to the athletic directors and they meet, and, sometimes you get teams, sometimes you don't. But we always try to play a tougher schedule, and I know there are years at Mingus that we had Higley, Sunrise Mountain, Cactus Shadows in a row. That was a bit much, but you always want to get one of the better teams you can, and for PowerPoints, you want to try to beef that thing up the best you can, trying to get ready for the region. So this year it seemed like Seton was a pretty good team. Obviously, Cactus, what they bring. The Yonkers getting better, and Estrella has always been good, even though they're struggling this year. And unfortunately, we lost Tempe this week. We were supposed to play them, so it looks like we're going to lose a game. There's a chance our bye week's week 11, so I know Casa Grande's already reached out. I don't know.
Okay.
They might be 1 or 2 and 4A. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's kind of our philosophy on scheduling.
Coach, I just want to ask you, talk about that wish list. Is there anybody, that in the past maybe that you've wanted to play, you haven't gotten a chance to play yet? Anybody that you might be looking at for next season? Is there anybody on the wish list right now?
It changes year by year. We like to play a lot of the Glendale kind of schools, the Greenways, the Thunderbirds, because it's a close trip.
Right.
Going to Estrella Foothills and Yonker, you pass about 50 or 60 schools you could play. So I would always prefer, the closer ones in North Phoenix. It's easier for our fans to travel, and it's really good competition. But, we've played just about everybody throughout the course of time. And, it's one of those deals, whoever we get, and we go play.
Coach, let's take a look at the team itself. You come into this year with your junior quarterback in Grady Rose. Josh Grant was your quarterback last year. He graduates. Can we talk a little bit about the difference in the way that those two players approach the position? We knew going in, Grady was the heir apparent after Josh graduated. And Grady's a little different. Josh was more of a runner. He'd take off and scramble, and Grady's really looking downfield to throw the football. And he since we were actually able to have an off season and do all the summer 7-on-7s, he's really taken charge of this offense and grown. And I know his stats aren't great because we didn't have a lot of success throwing early, but last week against Mingus we did, and I think he's going to build off of that. And that for us to thrive, we're going to have to be able to throw the ball. Well, and like you said, Coach, we'll talk a little bit about the receiving here in just a bit, but I want to take just a step back in the offense as well. And something that has been working to efficiency is the run game. Elijah Acuna has been running the ball very, very well this season, 500 yards on the ground so far, had a big game against Mingus Union High School. I mean, what have you liked from your senior running back?
Well, he's a 3-year starter, number one. And when we tweaked our offense a little bit, and we're more of a power running team this year, and that's more his style. I mean, he's a good north-south runner. He's done a really good job running sweep and power for us. And a lot of times he's able to get, yards when there's not a lot there. Him and Gabe Ricketts both. I mean, they're perfect for the kind of offense that we want to try to run.
Very much so, Coach. You've got the speedy Elijah Acuna, and then you kind of have that counterback with Gabriel Ricketts, a little bit bigger, a little bit more meatier of a running back. Let's just keep rolling with that. I mean, what kind of addition has Gabriel Ricketts been to the offense this season, especially since you guys are moving more towards that power run?
Well, he's the definition of a power runner. I mean, he's big, strong, fast. He's one of the, strongest kids we've got in school, and he just runs hard. And he's another north-south runner. And as a sophomore, it's kind of scary because, you're hoping he's going to continue to get better. And, he's had a great season for us as a sophomore. You don't expect a sophomore to just come on this early, but, he's taken to the offense and done a great job.
Coach, it seems like this team up and down is just full of great, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. Of course, you've got your senior class as well, one of which, Caleb Hill, who has been phenomenal defensively for you. He's got about 50 tackles so far this season. But looking at the rest of the defensive stats and even offensively as well, you're getting a lot of contributions from those juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. I mean, what kind of confidence is that putting forward to you next season when you're going to get most of these guys back, including your starting quarterback, and now Gabriel Ricketts taking over for Elijah Acuna?
Yeah, and that's always the plan. We're not senior heavy. We've got 12 seniors. Most of them play, and the bulk of our seniors are our offensive line. So that's going to be the big thing we've got to replace. But we do have a lot of guys coming back, and it's nice to know that you're going to have these guys for multiple years because they're working hard, they're getting better, and it's hard when you got a big group of seniors because then you got a tough rebuild on your hand, and we're certainly not in that position.
Talking about some of those contributors, let's stay more on the defensive side, Coach. You've got juniors and sophomores, just kind of naming a few names here: Brendan Shoemaker, Malachi Stevenson, who had a big game against Mingus Union, Jordan Kelly, just to name a few of those guys who are sophomores and juniors coming up for next season. Sticking more on the defensive side of the ball, Coach, how have you liked your defensive pressure? What have you liked from your defense this year so far?
Well, except for the Mingus game, the defense has been lights out. Even against Cactus, I mean, we held Cactus to 14 points in the first half, and they've been scoring 50 on everybody. But we had a hiccup against Mingus, and Mingus, to their credit, they've got a lot of speed, and if you're not in the right place, they hurt you really bad, and that's what they did. But I think overall, this is a second year we've ran this defense. So this is a second year most of these guys have got it. They're getting better at it. Like I said, it's sprinkled with juniors and seniors and a few sophomores. But I think it's a group that's going to continue to get better. And I mean, they'll learn from last Friday night, and they know our expectations are to not give up 45 points. And
right.
And I think they were. They're gonna come out and show that they're better than that in future weeks.
You talked about throwing the ball a little bit more. Again, we're speaking with Bradshaw Mountain High School football coach Bob Young. Coach Tanner Mitchell, your junior, leading the team right now in receptions. He's also been a huge contributor for special teams as well, operating as your kicker and your punter. 11 for 11 right now on extra point attempts is Tanner Mitchell. He had a huge game against Mingus Union, 167 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns as well. He's averaging about 48 yards per kickoff. Coach, you've been around the game for a while. I'm sure you've had years where your special teams have been phenomenal. You've had years where your special team struggles a little bit. How important is it to have a really good kicker, or even a kicker who, can knock it through the uprights every now and then in high school football?
Well, it's crucial. And I mean, we were fortunate last year. Josh Grant was all state. I mean, he was as good as it gets. And, we thought we were going to have a big drop off. And, Tanner's just one of those kids that, he played sparingly on JV last year, got in the weight room, and just worked his tail off. I mean, that's what you want for those kind of kids, the kids that work the hardest. You want to see them have this sort of success. And, he's the kind of kid that kind of came out of nowhere, not only receiving, but, as far as being the kicker. And he was, his first game against Seton, he was scared kicking and didn't do very well. And he started figuring out, this is just like practice, just go out and kick. And, he's done a great job. And he's just going to get better and better as we go along every week.
Yeah, if memory serves me correct, Tanner is a junior, so he'll be back next season. Coach, let's talk a little bit about some of those other kids you might be seeing next season. Your freshman and sophomore team have earned a couple wins so far this season. What have you liked from your lower levels so far?
Well, the main thing is the numbers. We've got, we started out with over 40 freshmen, last year we had 20. I mean, and that shows we don't have a lot of sophomores this year. And I'm sure some of it was because of the COVID and kids weren't on campus. But we're real excited about the numbers as far as the freshmen are concerned. So, mainly that freshman sophomore team it's all freshmen. So we're playing teams that have 10, 15 sophomores on it, and and when they battle and lose, it's not a disgrace for those guys. They're just getting better. So it's just going to help our numbers. We're real excited, and there's some kids that I think actually some freshmen that at the end of the year could come up and possibly help us as well. There's some big kids that are physically ready to go.
Well, that's good to hear, Coach. I mean, you just saying that you guys bringing in all these new fresh faces, and these kids are getting closer and closer to starting at the varsity level, especially as freshmen. That is absolutely incredible that you're going to be looking. Well, bad for the 4A Grand Canyon region, of course, because that means that the Bradshaw Mountain Bears are going to be hanging around for a little bit longer than I'm sure Prescott would like. But, Coach, welcoming in those freshmen, always great. Let's talk about improvement. Where's an area that you would like to see this team improve in going forward this season? I know you mentioned the passing game. Is there anything else that kind of sticks out to you?
I think just overall, our discipline, we have way too many penalties every week. And that's something that, I've always stressed that, we got to be more disciplined, and we're working on that. And that's just a culture change. And, that comes down to a lot of times our practice habits aren't the greatest. And that's something that takes time. And, the guys understand that. And, just as our practices improve, our discipline will be better, our performances, and just fundamentals. I mean, more than anything else, our passing game is getting better. Our running game is solid right now. You add a good passing attack, and, we're going to be just like against Mingus, we're going to be able to put up a lot of points.
Right.
Obviously defense, we want to continue to get better, and, just try to get a little bit better every single week, because we got the meat of the region coming up here in the next week or so.
Well, that was going to be the next transition question, was that matchup against Lee Williams, which I'll hang off for a second. Of course, we have been mentioning it all throughout the broadcast, whereas, of course, the Bears took on the Marauders last week on October 1st. So, Coach, your first kind of glimpse at the region so far. I know you've still got the rest of the region schedule coming up. Like I mentioned, a game against Lee Williams this week coming up. And then, of course, next week you just kick it off from there, Prescott, Cocoa, basically everybody else. So, Coach, I know you've only seen one team so far, but I know you've done some research, you've done some studying. How are you feeling about the region this year?
Well, I've seen them all on film, so
I know.
Region's strong. It's as strong as it's been. I've been doing this for a long time, and I think from top to bottom, this is one of the strongest years we've ever had. I mean, Coco's undefeated. Flag and Prescott were undefeated until last week. Lee Williams is tough, and they battled Prescott. Mingus battled Flagstaff. So, there's not a really bottom dweller this year. I think Coco's probably a little bit above everybody until somebody knocks them off. But right after Cocoa, I think everybody else, you just pull out a name, and they could be the next best team right now.
Yeah, you almost kind of I hate to say it out loud, but of course, Mojave leaving the 4A Grand Canyon region, you get that sort of struggling program that unfortunately did find themselves at the bottom of the region every year, at least for the past couple of years. But you're right. I totally agree. Obviously, I call the Mingus Union broadcast. So we've seen Flagstaff. We've obviously seen Bradshaw so far. I 100% agree. It's going to be a very, very close region. Even doing the preview show with Matt Showalter and Nick Yatsenko, it was really, really difficult to kind of nail down who was going to be at the top of the region at the end of the year.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
But Coach, looking forward, of course, to this week. You guys faced Lee Williams, a team where you guys last year beat them 51-28 at home. This year, of course, a brand new season. How are you feeling in that matchup against Patrick O'Boyle and his Volunteers?
You froze on me. I didn't hear the question.
How are you feeling about the matchup against Lee Williams, Coach?
Lee Williams is tough. The one thing that when we first started playing them, at Mingus a number of years ago, they weren't as athletic, and now they are. They're every bit as athletic and big, and I know they work hard in the weight room, and they're well coached. They're always going to be well coached team. So, and they may have the best quarterback in the region. It's that Santos kid. He can run, he can throw. So it's going to be a battle. We're going to be ready to play, and it's going to be probably a lot like Mingus. Hopefully not as high scoring if we can score that many points, but hopefully they won't get as many. But it's going to be a battle.
Coach, just before we let you go, let's briefly talk about Devin Santos. Of course, like you mentioned, the quarterback for Lee Williams. How much of a factor is he on the field in your preparation?
Oh, big time, because it's just like Kyler Murray with the Cardinals. I mean, you think you have a guy contained, and the next thing you know, he's running down the field for 30 yards. So it adds a whole nother, layer of defense that you really, really got to prepare and try to get these. And high school kids are just, they're wanting to go 100 miles an hour and they don't stay in their lanes, and that's when a quarterback like that will kill you. So, that's what we're going to be working on the next 2 weeks, and he's definitely capable of running and throwing. So just those multi-threat quarterbacks are really tough.
A very fun matchup coming up for Coach Bob and the Bradshaw Mountain Bears. Lee Williams taking on October 5th. Coach, best of luck going forward on the season. Thank you very much for coming on the show as usual. And as always, look forward to speaking with you again.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Northland Prep Academy cross-country coach Carl Perry right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us.
Starting in the late 1920s, Grandpa Gettle and his brothers laid the groundwork for what would become a family legacy. Almost 100 years and 100 patents later, Gettle's High Desert Mechanical continues to raise the bar of quality heating, cooling, and plumbing products and services in the Verde Valley.
Call Gettle's High Desert Mechanical Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing at 567-2200 or online at GettlesHDM.com, providing solutions for your comfort. Don't settle. Get Gettles.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am joined now by Northland Prep Academy cross-country coach Carl Perry. Coach Perry, welcome onto the show.
Thank you. I appreciate being on. You had a great interview, so good show.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Coach. We're happy to have you on. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're not the only cross-country coach coaching the program at Northland Prep Academy, but I appreciate you coming on and talking about both sides of the cross-country program. We're getting close to the start of state qualifiers. The Spartans, much like everybody else within the 4 divisions of cross-country, are all getting ready for the start of qualifiers here in November. Coach, just kind of broadly, how's the season been going so far?
Been going well. We've got a relatively small team, both the boys and the girls, but Coach Jill Ohm and I, who are kind of co-coaching the teams, are very pleased with how we're doing. We've got a bunch of young faces. I think on the boys roster, we have about 12 boys, and 9 of them are running cross country for the first time. On the girls roster, we've only got 8 girls, and half of them are running cross country for the first time. But we may be new, we may be young, but we are fast. So we're happy with the way the season's going.
Coach, can we talk a little bit about, Northland Prep Academy, obviously a little bit of a smaller school. So you're sharing players with a few of the programs potentially, as the seasons progress. What sort of challenges have you faced coaching at a smaller school and coaching a program like cross country that only utilizes about, maybe 12 players or so throughout the season? A much smaller roster, of course, compared to, let's say, soccer or basketball or football. But Coach, I'm just kind of curious, how do you guys sort of navigate some of those difficulties that might come up in terms of, just filling out the rosters every year with such a smaller school?
Yeah, well, I think pointing out the fact that we're a smaller school is the biggest challenge for us. We have a fantastic running culture up in Flagstaff. So my youngest son and Jill's oldest son both graduated last year, and I think the graduating class was less than 70 kids. Wow. So we don't have a big pool to draw from. But to compound the recruitment problem, in Division 4, soccer is a fall sport. Most of Arizona, it's a winter sport, and there are a lot of kids who use cross country as a way to get fit for the soccer season, but not for us. We have to compete with the soccer team in getting kids, and the soccer program has been really strong recently, and there's a big draw, particularly on the girls' side. I think our girls soccer team has only lost one game in the last 5 seasons, and they've got a big, strong program. So it's been hard for us to recruit runners, and both Jill and I don't actually work as teachers in the school, so we don't have that face-to-face contact with the kids, urging them to come out, and say that some of the teams that Northland Prep have had in the past, we've always had a teacher in the building able to recruit. But like I said, distance running is part of the blood of people living in Flagstaff. So we always have great runners looking to run cross country.
Yeah, I got a chance to speak with Coach Blair and Coach Hovis of the girls soccer program a little earlier in the program. But yeah, you're right. A very, very good soccer program does sort of spell a bit difficulty for a cross country program, like you mentioned, with a lot of kids wanting to be participating possibly more in soccer. But, of course, outside of that, you mentioned you got a lot of new faces this year, which is great. A lot of new faces on the boys' side, a handful of new faces on the girls' side. So while it is a little difficult to maybe grab everybody who would want to play cross country, it's great that you guys are seeing some new faces. Some of those new faces, we're going to start on the boys' side here. Freshman Miles Underwood, Colton Anderson, Jaden Santini, Harrison Kessenich, Delani Hansen, just to name a few of the new runners for you that are getting time at the varsity level, all placed pretty well this year at the Ray Worley Invitational on October 2nd. That is the most recent meet that you guys have participated in. Coach, what kind of confidence does this give you, knowing that a good chunk of those guys might be returning next season? We talked a little bit about some of the difficulties in recruiting that can happen. Of course, you can't actively recruit outside of the campus. You have to kind of focus inside, but a strong core of young freshmen coming in, good potential. They'll come back next year. What kind of confidence does that give you going forward?
It gives us a lot of confidence. We, it's just over halfway through the season, really, and the fact that we have 3 freshmen on the boys varsity team, and actually 4 of them are running cross country for the first time. But you mentioned some of those names. Delani Hansen is the younger brother of Malachi Hansen, who's been our top runner for the last couple of years. Colton Anderson is the younger brother of Hayden Anderson, who graduated 2 or 3 years ago, and was one of Northland Prep's all-time greats. He's definitely primarily a basketball player, but he's really strong and really competitive. Miles Underwood, I don't think he really knows how talented he is yet, and he's really been coming on strong. I think he had his best race of the season on Saturday in Prescott at Ray Worley. So, and then some of the other new faces on the boys' side. Declan Norris is a junior, but he is running cross country for the first time, and he's having an outstanding season. We've got a great top 4. Malachi Hansen, I mentioned earlier, he's been our top runner for a couple of years. Dan Berger is a really talented all-round athlete. Last year, he was a dual sport athlete. He was swimming and running cross country at the same time, and he ended up being an all-state finisher at the state championship. Jacob Taylor is a senior, but running just his 2nd season of cross country, and he has probably improved more than anyone. On the girls' side, if you want to talk about the young up-and-comers, we've got the Drexler twins, Sarah and Laura, who are just outstanding. And getting better every single day, as you expect a freshman to. And at the top of our girls team, we've got Meg Moyer. She's been a star since she was a freshman. She's a junior now, and she just continues to get better every single year. We've got a couple more seniors, Audrey Gillenwater and Dina Pappas, who are great runners. Dina was one of our superstar sprinters on the track team last year, but just to show what a great all-around athlete she is, she's able to be one of the best from the 100 meters up to 5 kilometers in cross country. So.
Coach, along with, of course, you're getting a lot of those new faces we talked about, a couple of those new returners, like you mentioned, even some of the kids who maybe on paper you would think, oh, he's a junior, so he's probably been running for a little while, like you mentioned with Declan being technically his first year ever running cross country. how much do you guys rely on? I know the group is kind of small, but how much have you guys relied on the returners on both sides of the program this year? How much has that upperclassman leadership meant to you and Coach Allman, along with the new faces that are making up the rest of the program?
It means a lot. We had a meeting with the returning seniors right at the end of the track season, actually, and talked about their role as leaders, and they have really stepped up and been fantastic leaders. They encourage the young kids coming up, and most importantly, they set the example in practice every single day. And there's nothing like distance running to teach growing young adults the lesson that if the work you put in today is going to pay off down the road sometime, and the harder you work today, the bigger the payoff down the road. And that's one of the valuable lessons you learn as a distance runner, and helps give all these kids confidence. And the seniors are setting that example by taking every single run every single day seriously, and helping the young kids learn that lesson too.
Again, we were speaking with Northland Prep Academy cross-country coach Carl Perry. The Spartans are getting close to the end of the cross-country season, as we get closer and closer to state qualifiers beginning in the month of November. Coach, we kind of briefly mentioned it at the beginning of the show, the sort of culture of running that's built up in Flagstaff. I got an opportunity to ask a couple coaches about that question regarding just, how much running has been emphasized up in the Flagstaff area. Of course, everybody loves that high altitude running, but I'd love to get your opinions on sort of the running culture up in the Flagstaff area. Coco, bases Flagstaff, Flagstaff High School, you guys up there in Northland Prep. There are a lot of teams that placed very well last year in the state qualifiers that are still running very, very well here in 2021. So like I mentioned, I'd just love to get your opinion on the running culture up in the Flagstaff area.
Yeah, you can't beat the culture. Yeah. There's not a day that goes by that I don't see a world-class runner run past. I saw Abdirahman run past this morning when I went out for a little jog. He's a 5-time Olympian, and he runs behind my house almost every day. It's just it's a beautiful place to train. There are forest trails everywhere. The 7,000 feet altitude can't be beat for a distance runner. It gives our kids the stamina and strength that they need to compete at the state championships. The Cave Creek Golf Course down in Phoenix, I think a lot of the kids down in the valley think of as one of the toughest courses they'll run. And for us, it's nothing. The hills are smaller, and the air is thicker. So, being surrounded by runners, being right next door to Northern Arizona University, which every year is battling for a national championship at the collegiate level, it's part of the air that we breathe, as thin as it may be.
And that is very true, Coach. Of course, that thin air is a huge competitive advantage. Of course, a completely legal competitive advantage, but a huge competitive advantage. I remember I've mentioned this a few times on the show, just having to play against Big Bear High School in California, going to school at Shadow Hills High School in Indio, California. And they're much higher altitude than we are. And I remember playing baseball and basketball right around the 5th inning or right around the 2nd or 3rd quarter. Everybody started getting gassed because the thin air is up in Big Bear, much like in Flagstaff, so thin. And if you're not used to it, if you're like me, who grew more up in the city, lower elevation, or if, I guess in your situation, Coach, kids who are coming up from the Phoenix area and racing here in Flagstaff, that thin air, it really provides quite the competitive advantage when it comes to cross country and track.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Big Bear is where Ryan Hall went. And,
that's correct.
His daughter, Mia Hall, is the star at Flag High this year. So.
Yes, she is. So it's kind of funny, the crossover there between, I guess, my neck of the woods and now up here in northern Arizona. But yeah, Mia Hall, of course. Coach, cross country, obviously you're welcoming some new players in this year. What is the most difficult aspect of cross country to teach to a new runner?
For the young kids, it takes a long time to know what your limits are, and it's hard to push yourself to the limit each day until you've done it a bunch, and that's why you see young kids improve so much in races. It's not I think I was looking at the results from 3 of our 4 freshmen in Prescott. The week before, we had run down in the valley at Twilight Race, and that's a very flat, fast course on a golf course. And but these young kids were inspired. They went up to Prescott, which is over 5,000 feet, and it was really tough, hilly, rocky course. And 3 of the 4 in the freshman sophomore race, 3 of our 4, set huge personal records. One by 30 seconds, one by minute and a half, one by 3 minutes. So you can't say that in 1 week's time they got that much fitter. They're just learning about their body, and it may feel like you're pushing towards death. I don't know what it may. But it's a level of fatigue that you need to become familiar with. So,
well, that's a great point. You can say that sort of for every aspect of life so far, just learning your personal limitations and learning how far you can push yourself, or kind of scaling it back if you're pushing yourself a little too hard. Again, we were speaking with Northland Prep Academy cross country coach Carl Perry. Coach Perry, you got 2 meets coming up here, getting close to the end of the season. We're getting real close to the start of state qualifiers. The first one will take place on October 13th. That is the Flagstaff City meet, followed by the Holbrook Invitational on October 22nd. Coach, let's start with the Flagstaff City meet. How are you feeling going into that one next week?
We love that race. It's, we're rivals with the other 3 schools in Flagstaff, but friends as well. We see them at meets. The coaches see each other, and we always, are happy to see each other. And there's nothing like the atmosphere of the Flagstaff City meet. Does it mean much? Not much more than bragging rights, I suppose. But that's a lot. The Holbrook meet later in the month, that'll be our last regular season race. So beyond that, it'll just be our top 7 training and competing for the sectional and state championship meets. But it's an important preview for us. Holbrook, the golf course that we run on Holbrook, is where we'll be running the sectional championships another 10 days, 2 weeks later. And we will be competing against Hopi at probably both the Holbrook meet, but definitely at sectionals, and their annual rivals with us. So back in 2018, our boys broke Hopi's 26 or 27 consecutive state title streak, which was a national record. And they always want to beat us. So our boys have won the last 3 sectional titles. Unfortunately, Hopi, along with all the other reservation schools last year, canceled all sports and athletics because of COVID. But we're really happy to have them back this year. And they're one of the teams that will be contending for a state title for sure on the boys' side.
Well, Coach Perry, before we let you go, I do want to ask, who can we expect to see at the state qualifiers? Who can we expect to see when state competition actually kicks off? Any of your runners getting geared up and ready to go for state qualifiers? Anybody that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, look out for all of them. They're all getting ready. We are definitely competing as a team. We've got some really strong individuals up top, but both our boys team and our girls team are amongst the 3 or 4 teams that are in the discussion for bringing home a trophy at the state championship meet in mid-November. On the boys, actually both the boys and the girls side, Northwest Christian will be in the mix. They might be on paper the best teams. I think on the boys side, Hopi is probably the team to beat. They look really strong when we've seen them. And Glendale Prep on the girls side also looks really strong. But our girls, we're defending champs. We weren't supposed to win last year. No one on paper had us with a chance, and we dominated, to be honest. Okay. We had a spread of 37 seconds between our top girl and our 5th girl, our top 5 scorers. And our kids hope to do something similar this year, so surprise some of those teams down in the valley. It's hard for them to really know how good we are because we compete mostly at elevation on much tougher, hillier courses, but we'll be ready.
Well, Coach, I know you and your team will definitely be ready as we get ready to get closer and closer to the start of state competition. Again, the Spartans will be headed to the Flagstaff City meet on October 13th, followed by the Holbrook Invitational on the 22nd. Coach, best of luck on the season going forward. Best of luck in the state qualifiers along with the state competition. Thank you very much for coming on the program to talk about your 2 programs.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
That's going to do it for this episode of Off the Bench. I'd like to thank Northland Prep Academy girls soccer coaches Michael Blair and Keith Hovis for stopping in, and of course, Bradshaw Mountain High School football coach Bob Young and Coach Carl Perry of Northland Prep Academy cross country. That is this episode of Off the Bench. I'm your host, Philip Katafamo, wishing you a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.